Thank you very much. What a fitting way to start off the evening as we take that journey back, as we celebrate emancipation and independence. We will now stand as we will all join in singing the hymn of praise.
Joyful, joyful, we adore thee.
Joyful, joyful, we adore thee. All the glory and of love. Hearts and full thy thoughts before thee. Open to the sun above. But the of sin and sadness drive the darts of love's Giver of immortal gladness, fill us with the light of praise. All thy works rejoice around thee, earth and heaven reflect thy ray. Stars and angels sing around thee, center of broken praise. Field and forest, vale and mountain, glory meadows, flashing sea, singing birds and flowing fountain, all a story towards forgiven and forgiven, ever blessing, ever blessed, wellspring of the joy of living, ocean depth of happy rest. Our Father, Christ our brother, all who live in love are thine. Teach us how to love each other, lift us to the joy divine. Mortal join the mighty chorus, preach the morning stars begun. Father, love is reigning o'er us, brother, love binds man to man. Ever singing, march we onward, victors in the victor's time. Joyful music leads us onward, in the triumph song of
Amen.
We ask that you be seated. And we will now have the prayer of invocation and adoration.
It will be done by Deacon Bertie Dwyer.
Brothers, sisters, friends, let us pause and reflect on the journey and declare together that thus far has the Lord led us. And so we join our hearts in prayer, inviting the presence of God and ushering our praise and adoration on him. Great God of our fathers, thus far have you led us through many dangers, toils, and snares. God, your presence has been with us throughout the ages, as you were with the children of Israel when they wandered around in the wilderness. And Lord, you have been with each and every one of us throughout the ages. Your presence we must have with us. And thus, great God, we call upon you this afternoon to be with us throughout our time of reflection, throughout our time of casting our minds and our hearts to comprehend the vicissitudes of slavery, but the liberty with which you have set us free. And so, great God, I ask of you this afternoon to be with us individually, be with us corporately, be with us globally, because we cannot do without you. Redeeming God, the blood of your Son, Jesus Christ, continues to wash and to cleanse and to draw us to you. Sinners though we are, we ask you, God, to redeem us one more time. Loving God, your mercy trumps judgment, and indeed we are grateful because we are human beings most morose, forgetting to love as you have taught us, to embrace as you have embraced us. But nonetheless, Father, your love redeems us. Providing God, you have kept the many families, those who have lost loved ones in the passage, that vicious passage across the oceans. And you have kept those of us who have lived through their ancestors to tell the tales of slavery. And I pray, God, adoringly, that you would teach us. Teach us the viciousness of slavery, that we, through your love, through your provision, through your grace, may love one more time, forgive one more time, lend a hand one more time. Teach us, Lord, how to live. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are in for a treat this afternoon. You will be educated, you will be entertained. And as we move along in the program,
Scripture reading will be taken from St. Luke 16, 27 to 45. Should be read by Brother Croswell Taylor.
Yes. I'm reading from the New Revised Standard Version. But I say to you that lesson, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you. And if anyone takes your goods, do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to receive as much again. But love your enemies, do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return. Your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, for he is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put in your lap. For the measure you give will be the measure you get back. He also told them a parable. Can a blind person guide a blind person? Will not both fall into a pit? A disciple is not above the teacher, but everyone is fully qualified will be like the teacher. Why do you see the speck in your neighbor's eye, but do not notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your neighbor, friend, let me take the speck in your eye, when you yourself do not see the log in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your neighbor's eye. No good tree bears bad fruit, nor again does a bad tree bear good fruit. For each tree is known by its own fruit. Figs are not gathered from thorns, nor grapes picked from a bramble bush. The good person out of the treasure of the heart produces good, and the evil person out of evil treasure produces evil. For it is out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks.
This is the word of the Lord. We honor it by saying thanks be to God.
Statement of Emancipation in Jamaica. It will be read by yours truly.
Statement of Emancipation in Jamaica, 1838. Jubilation rang out in the square of Spanish Town, the then capital of Jamaica. Freedom is at hand. The British rule over enslaved Africans has finally come to an end. It was the morning of August 1, 1838, that a procession led by the Baptist Church and its congregation, under the direction of Reverend J.M. Phillips, marched to the government house. The proclamation of freedom was read by Governor Sir Lionel Smith to over 8,000 persons who gathered for this momentous celebration. The symbols of oppression that once served as physical and psychological restraints were now ceremoniously paraded in a hearse, cremated, and given their final resting place. Yes, the shackles and the chains that were once used as a means of control and punishment were no more. August 1, 1838 marks the day when the Emancipation Act was finally enacted and slavery officially abolished in Jamaica. The journey began when the Emancipation Act of 1833 was passed by the British Parliament, which provided for the gradual abolition of slavery throughout the British Empire. This was fueled by the activism of prominent figures in the Caribbean and Britain who advocated for the abolition of slavery, notably Sir William Wilberforce and Thomas Clarkson. In addition, the constant uprising and rebellion by slaves on plantations were cause for concern as they became increasingly difficult to control. The uprisings were many, but the success of the Taki Revolt in 1760 and the Christmas Rebellion of 1831 served as encouragement for the already restive African slaves. By August 1, 1834, the Slavery Abolition Act was passed, and provided the hope that all enslaved Africans longed for. The Emancipation Declaration was read from the steps of the old King's House in Spanish Town and enabled the freedom of over 300,000 enslaved Africans in Jamaica. While the news was celebrated by their attendance to divine services, or by slaves climbing up hills and trees to witness the literal dawning of their freedom, true freedom was not yet within their reach. This is because the Abolition Act truly freed slaves who were not yet born or those under the age of 6 years. All other slaves were to be enrolled in a 6-year apprenticeship program that saw them working for their former masters, but with improved conditions. Thankfully, the 6-year apprenticeship program ended 2 years early, and on August 1, 1838, all slaves were made free. Today, we look back at the journey traversed by our ancestors, the pain that they endured, the resilience that they fought with, and the hope that they created for us as a nation. We celebrate this day as it is a reminder of the struggles, the triumphs, the persistence, and the strength of our people. Thank you for listening. We now invite Deacon Sharon Patterson, Assistant Circuit Secretary, to do the welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. The 26th renewal of the Emancipation Lecture and Cultural Presentation is of much significance for the Calvary Circuit of Baptist churches because of having served a generation. Many of the young adults of the Bowgill, Calvary, and South Spring Baptist churches were babies when the inaugural lecture and cultural presentation was first hosted. And here they are today, engaged in leadership roles in the 3 churches and the wider Montego Bay and St. James communities. To God be the glory. The aforementioned is meant to suggest that it is with a high sense of appreciation, thanksgiving to you all, and appreciate pride that I welcome all of you who are here in person and who are on the YouTube and Facebook platforms to this, our 26th annual Emancipation Lecture and Cultural Presentation. On behalf of our pastor, Reverend Michael Shinu, our deacons, other leaders, and other members of the circuit, and the diligent and illustrious planning committee. Let's give them a hand, please. This year's theme, Redemption Song, Garvey, Marley, and Liberation Theology, has been aptly inspired by God and designed by this year's lecturer, who will be appropriately introduced later in our program. Please permit me, therefore, to welcome all of you present, especially a number of specially invited guests. His Worship, the Mayor of Montego Bay, Councillor Leroy Williams, who had accepted our invitation to be in attendance and to bring greetings. We all have heard by now that the mayor was involved in a motor vehicle crash, as a result of which he is recuperating through our prayers, well wishes, rest, and the doctor's orders. The Deputy Mayor of Montego Bay, Councillor Richard Vernon, may we invite you to stand, sir, as you receive the welcome. Let's welcome him. Thank you. We have with us also the Minister of State in the Office of the Prime Minister and Member of Parliament, St. James Southern, Honorable Homer Davis. And you're here by yourself, sir, so welcome. All right. There are some persons I'm not seeing, but I'll move right along. Our pastors, deacons, and member churches, may we invite you to stand that we may welcome you especially. No one from the other churches, no pastor, deacons. Just stand, please. Stand so we can welcome you properly. Welcome. Principals, vice principals, other members of staff, and students of our schools, please stand to receive our welcome. All right, let's welcome them, please. I'm sure there are persons from other schools, right? They're here. Welcome. The Montego Bay High School dance troupe, accompanied by Mr. Raheem Wellington, representing the Jamaica Cultural Development Commission, with a dance later in the program. Stand so we can welcome you. I think you're on that side. Stand so we welcome you. And I just correct, that's Raheem Wellington. The South Spring Baptist Church, and especially the church's inspirational choir, welcome. Stand so that we can welcome you. Welcome. We want to also welcome especially our Congo drummer, Mr. Kurt McDuffus, who called us to this evening's Emancipation Lecture and cultural presentation. Oh yes, he's at the back. Would you stand, sir? Just stand for us. Welcome, welcome. And we have Miss Bernadine Fraser, who did a well-done job in terms of the dance, and she's from the Calvary Baptist Church. Welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome our guest lecturer of this, the 26th Emancipation Lecture and Cultural Presentation of the Bowgill and Calvary Baptist Churches, Mr. Lloyd B. Smith, Chief Executive Officer and Editor-in-Chief of the Western Mirror. Welcome, sir. Welcome to you all who are in attendance at this, the 26th renewal of our Emancipation Lecture and Cultural Presentation. May we all receive the blessings of God that is awaiting us. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Sister Sharon. At this time, we invite Deacon Clive Harris to do the Emancipation Lecture and Culture Presentation.
Good evening, everyone. I am here to tell the story of this event over the years. And since I'm about to tell you a story, let me give you a little backdrop. The Baptist War, also known as the Sam Sharp Rebellion, the Christmas Rebellion, the Christmas Uprising, and the Great Jamaican Slave Revolt of 1831 to 1832, was an 11-day rebellion that started on the 25th of December, 1831, led by a Baptist deacon, Samuel Sharp. The Baptist missionaries preached against the injustices of slavery, and so we were in the fight for the abolition of slavery quite early out. Sam Sharp was a deacon in the famous Burchell Memorial Baptist Church. His daughter and granddaughter were members of Little Baptist, renamed as Calvary Baptist Church, following the breakaway of members from the Burchell Baptist. genesis of the lectures. In 1996, Reverend Carl B. Johnson, then associate pastor of the Calvary Baptist Circuit of Baptist Churches, thought it was significant for us as Baptists to recognize the emancipation, to understand our independence and our role as a church body in the struggles. Hence, birth was given to the annual staging of the Emancipation Lectures. It was first called at Calvary. It was first a Calvary event, but in the years following, the entire St. James Baptist community was invited to participate. Today marks the 26th staging of the lecture. COVID would have taken 2 years from us. It is of significance to note that Deacons Glorine Perry, Angela Mullings, Norma Foster, and Jeannie Robinson Foster have been part of the planning committee for 25 years. They really deserve that applause. Others would have been Deacon Dorothy Hanson, Reverend C. Sam Reed, Carl B. Johnson, and Everton Jackson. The first lecturer was the Reverend Henry Earl Thames, moderator of the United Church in Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, who served on the Council for World Mission. Guiding principle. The guiding principle for these lectures has been how, as Baptists, we can work to preserve our culture and advance the development of our country and people. The topics and the lecturers have always done justice to this principle. We have always sought to highlight aspects of our culture. In the early days, for example, we highlighted the bandana in different ways, adding it to the dress for the choir and the children who acted as hosts and hostesses. The congregation was encouraged to add the Jamaican colors to their outfits, and I see it still in action today. There's always a place designated for displays. Anything that reminds us of old-time sinting. Some people may say something based on where you're from in Jamaica. Such as the chimney. I can't call it the other name in this audience. But I did a little search on Google. Here what's Google respond. What you mean, passport? I said, Google, you're not understanding this. The self-heater iron, past Jamaican money notes and coins along with others have been on displays, and we have a display at the back. Another mainstay of the years is the cultural presentations. For example, the Hatfield Cultural Group, the Montego Bay Boys Club Marching Band, and various individuals have come and done cultural presentations. Efforts were always made to ensure that as best as possible, the displays and cultural events support the theme of the lecture. We give tokens. That's another mainstay of the story over the years. The gift of small tokens to everyone who attend has been a staple. It is often something which gives us an idea of the bitter struggles of our forebearers. And so we use the tamarind. The tamarind gives us the sense of bitter and sweet, slavery and emancipation. Other things we do use to highlight the Jamaican culture and cuisine. The first lecture, titled The Role of the Church in the Emergence of the New Jamaica, From Emancipation to Present, Reverend Earl Thames. The fifth, Domination and Liberation, Retrospect and Prospect, Dr. Errol Miller. The 10th, Building on the Past, Charting Our Future by Choosing the Right Cornerstone, Professor Neville Duncan. The 15th, Emancipate Yourself from Mental Slavery, Dr. Simon Clark. The 20th, Men of the Sugar Plantation, Impact and Lessons for Today's Society, Mr. Arnold Bertram. The 25th, A Call for the Reawakening of a Nation, the Church's Response, Reverend Karen Curlew. Today, we are at the 26th staging. We continue to write our history. Ladies and gentlemen, I just presented to you the story over the years of the Calvary Baptist Circuit of Churches annual Emancipation Lecture and Cultural Presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Deacon Harris. All right, it is time to get some greetings. And so I will invite, in this order, the Deputy Mayor of Montego Bay, Councillor Richard Vernon, to come and give greetings. And immediately after him, the Minister of State in the Office of the Prime Minister and Member of Parliament for St. James Southern, Honorable Homer Davis.
All right, thank you very much, Mrs. Nanda Black. I get it right? Yes. Reverend Yushim and other members of the clergy and members of the church. Shim you, forgive me. Shim. Can't switch it the other way around, the other way around. Okay. I'm permitted. Honorable Homer Davis, Minister of State in the Office of the Prime Minister and Member of Parliament for St. James Southern. Our distinguished governor here, Mr. Lloyd B. Smith, guest lecturer this afternoon. Distinguished members here joining us, good afternoon. How are we this afternoon? No, sir, we all sound tired. How are we this afternoon? We should be sounding emancipated. Yes? Today is a very important day. And before I tell you why it is important, I just want to say I want to greet you on behalf of the St. James Municipal Corporation. This event here at the Calvary Baptist Church is important because it manifests an important part of our state formation. It manifests an important part of who we are as a people, and we must never forget that. There are those who are not aware of our history. There are those who do not embrace our culture. Those persons are threatening our Jamaicanness. They need to get with it. They need to know why. You need roots so we can grow trees and branches. So it is very important and most apt to be held here at a Baptist church that has been critically involved in our growth as a people, culturally, intellectually, and all the alleys that Mr. Smith will tell you about later on. But indeed, when you think about our liberation and our transformation, it juxtaposes against our socio-economic development. And that is something that we have to really look at. We have been emancipated, we have been growing, and we are at this stage. It is time to internalize, it is time to plan and look to the future. But I'm happy that we are having this session And I was hoping to see more youngsters because they need to know our history, the rain. They need to know about our culture, and not just to know it, but to embrace it, to apply it, to use it as a constant reminder of where we are coming from and where we need to go. So thank you very much for listening, and may God bless you.
Good evening. Deputy Mayor of Montego Bay, Councillor Richard Vernon. Our esteemed guest lecturer, Mr. Lloyd B. Smith, the Governor, Chief Executive Officer and Editor-in-Chief, Western Mirror. And I can say it's one of the oldest publications outside of Kingston, which that would be the Gleaner. Am I right, Lloyd B? Yes, sir. Our Reverend Michael Shimyu. Hope I get it right. You know, when he came and introduced himself to me, what struck me then was that our motto is well apt. And I remember not so long ago, there was a song about the black-haired Chinaman. And you know, it is funny. It is funny where we are coming from as a people. And I was in a discussion recently with a Chinese delegation. And I reminded them that the Chinese is, their presence in Jamaica is synonymous with Jamaica, because they came about 175, 80 years ago. They first came from, I think it was Panama. So when I told him that, you know, there were some black Jamaicans, Chin, Lee, Chong, and we who, you know, grew up in rural parts of Jamaica will know that in all major rural townships, there was a Chinaman shop. And after a while, we all integrated. We all integrated. And so, sir, let me welcome you to Montego Bay, and let me welcome you to Calvary, because just in case, no one might have said to you, but this is the church where my wife and I, and that's why when Madam was giving the welcome, she thought Mrs. Davis would have been here. But this is where we worship some, but politics has taken me away because I'm all the way in the south. Distinguished church members, visiting friends, And I can't sit here and don't recognize Dr. Prendergast and Mrs. Doreen Prendergast from UWI West. That's the big man in the West. And it's important. Very important. There are two very important people. One is in the West and one is in the East. Very powerful lady. She operates out of the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, and that is out of the Office of the Prime Minister. So, Light B, you know, you have it all covered. But this evening, I consider it an esteemed honor to be invited here to share in this 26th Emancipation Lecture and Cultural Presentation being hosted by my home church, Calvary Baptist Church. It is indeed a pleasure of mine to join you here this evening for this event themed Redemption Song, Garvey, Marley, and the Liberation Theology. As I stand here today to bring greetings, my mind travels a bit down memory lane. The date is August 1st, 1838. I can hear Thomas Gardner shouting, "I rejoice. I am a slave no more, and you are a slave no more. Jamaica is slave no more." Amen. In this grand jubilation, I can hear all other ex-slaves shouting, rejoicing, and praising God, having a joyous celebration after hearing the final words of Emancipation Declaration, affirming their full freedom from slavery. They were celebrating the abolition of the system which had dehumanized them in the British Caribbean and England for over 150 years. As we observe this occasion, I want to use this occasion to ask each of us to celebrate the numerous achievements of our Jamaican people that have come following that historic day of emancipation from slavery. Let us pay tribute to Robert Nesta Marley, more popularly known as Bob Marley, who has done his fair share. Sam Sharp has played his role in emancipating us from physical slavery. But Bob Marley, after careful observation of our way of thinking and our way of life, realized that we were still enslaved within our minds, and so he encouraged us to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. These great men, among others, have played a significant role in the emancipation process, and today we say thanks. Today I use this platform to echo a call for the teaching of national hero, the Right Excellent Samuel Sharp, to become part of the lecture or lecturer which is being used in our education system today. Like the teaching of Marcus Garvey, the teaching of Daddy Sharp will have a major impact on our society, especially our youth, some of whom have lost their way due to the lack of civic and cultural pride. Over the years, we, especially here in St. James, have been celebrating the life and work of Daddy Sharp 3 times per year. Labor Day on the 23rd of May to mark the day he was hanged. National Heroes Day, as he is a national hero, and on December the 27th to mark the commemoration of the Christmas Rebellion, now proclaimed as Sam Sharp Day. The constituency of St. James Southern, the constituency which I proudly represent in Parliament, has its historic background as it relates to emancipation from slavery. Ketadupa is the birthplace of the Right Excellent Samuel Sharp. And Tulloch Castle in Kensington, the site where the Christmas Rebellion was orchestrated. As such, the citizens of this great constituency have been doing their best in keeping the flames of freedom going in honor of Daddy Sharp. These are events which we hope will play a role in reigniting the cultural and social consciousness of our people, a mission which must be shared across Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, if we are to truly honor the work and worth of Daddy Sharp, Marcus Garvey, and Bob Marley, and the others, the shackles of selfishness, corruption, mediocrity, and negativity, which are part of our past, must be permanently removed as we build a just, productive, and transparent society. The time has come for us to start acting as a liberated people, which will show clearly that our nation is not only emancipated and independent on paper, but in mindset, in our adaptability to changes, in economic growth, and in development, as well as the progress we make in unifying our citizens. Let us use this Emancipation Lecture and cultural presentation to reflect on the sacrifices made by our national heroes and heroines, by our freedom fighters, by our liberators. And let us be more resolute in our action and start paying more respect to the meaning of our national anthem, our national symbols and emblem, and indeed our country and our people. Ladies and gentlemen, again, it is my pleasure to be here as we celebrate being an emancipated nation. Let us vow to do so in a spirit of togetherness and as Jamaicans living the Jamaican dreams. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, that was well said.
And thank you, Minister Homer Davis. Well, it's that time. You know that you are coming to a lecture, so I hope that you brought your notebooks and your pens and open up your minds and get ready to receive. So we will invite Sister Joel Gray. She's going to do the introduction of our guest lecturer, after which
we have the culture item from Calvary Adult Choir.
So yes, we are going to have the introduction of the guest lecturer and a cultural item by Calvary's Adult Choir, and immediately after which our guest lecturer will come and do his presentation.
Profile on Mr. Lloyd B. Smith, Order of Distinction 2022, on the occasion of the 26th Annual Emancipation Lecture and Cultural Presentation of the Calvary Baptist Circuit of Baptist Churches, Sunday, July 30, 2023. Lloyd B. Smith, guest lecturer at this Emancipation Lecture and Cultural Presentation, speaking on the theme, Redemption Song, Garvey, Marley, and the Liberation Theology. He is the current owner, Chief Executive Officer, and Editor-in-Chief of Western Publishers Limited, publisher of the award-winning Western Mirror community newspaper, now in its 43rd year. He was the chairman and founding editor in 1980. Having received the Sam Sharp Award for Journalism, it is no wonder that under his leadership, the Western Mirror has received numerous awards and citations, including the Press Association of Jamaica Best Small Publication Award on 6 occasions, the Marcus Garvey First Memorial Achievement Award, the Prince Media and the St. James Parish Council Trailblazer Award in recognition of the 35th anniversary of the conferral of city status on Montego Bay. A leading theater personality in Montego Bay, having the distinction of being the first Jamaican outside of Kingston and the corporate area for having won the 2001 prestigious Actor Boy Award for Best Actor in a Leading Role. He has served as chairman of the Montego Bay Little Theater Movement and Fairfield Theater and artistic director, West Side Theater Company. Lloyd B. Smith has worked as editor of Kingston Publishers Limited, now LMH Publishing Limited, and has edited the first 2 books on national hero Sir Alexander Bustamante, among several Caribbean West Indian publications. A lecturer not only on this occasion, but also at the Montego Bay Community College and the University of the West Indies Western Campus in mass media, a therefore highly sought after motivational and public speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us this afternoon the governor, who our guest speaker is popularly known because of his many years of community service and advocacy in Western Jamaica. How did he come to achieve so much? Lloyd B. Smith, Order of Distinction 2022, was born in Montego Bay and attended the Montego Bay Infants and Montego Bay Boys School, now Colonel Primary School, Cornwall College, Church Teachers College, a pioneer student, Newhouse School of Communication, Syracuse University, New York, where he received a special diploma in mass media, having been awarded the USIS Media Fellowship to study mass media. A senior justice of the peace for the parish of St. James, twice elected president of the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and in 2016 was presented with the Press Association of Jamaica Veterans Award for outstanding accomplishments in the field of journalism. A deputy mayor of Montego Bay Boys and Girls Club, and in 2001 was proclaimed the official theatrical representative of Montego Bay of the Office of Mayor, St. James Parish Council. A recipient of Church Teachers College Distinguished Past Student Award on the occasion of the institution's 50th anniversary celebrations. He is currently the 2nd Vice President of the Press Association of Jamaica. Our governor has served as Member of Parliament for the constituency of St. James Central and Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives. During his tenure, he He initiated the founding of the Montego Bay Arts Council, which established the Montego Bay Cultural Center in Sam Sharp Square. Mr. Lloyd B. Smith is married to Michelle and have a daughter, Saroya, and a son, Brett. Mr. Smith is a current political analyst, public affairs commentator, talk show host, columnist in the Daily Observer, director of the Montego Bay Corp Credit Union, and many, many other areas of service to the community of Montego Bay. Please forgive me for saying this, but it is clear that this member of the Calvary Baptist Church hobby is service, work, and giving himself to the community in building the human race. Ladies and gentlemen, after the musical presentation of the Calvary Baptist Church Adult Choir, Mr. Smith will come to lecture us. Please make him welcome at this time and again when he comes to the podium. Thank you.
My soul's been the storm of life is past, safe into the heaven guide, I receive my soul at last. In the Lord, in the Lord, in the Lord, in the Lord, my soul is anchored, is anchored in the
Good afternoon. Reverend Michael Shimhue, Minister of State Homer Davis, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Vernon, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen who have been sufficiently introduced prior to this, I feel a very special moment enveloping my persona as I set about to give this lecture. And I say this because some of you may not know that I'm supposed to be a Baptist. My mother and father were married in the Calvary Baptist Church when it was at Market Street. That would have been in 1945. I was christened, along with my late twin brother, also in the Calvary Baptist Church in 1947, giving away my age. Both my parents were buried after services here. And I think there's a plaque somewhere along the building that has my name and my mother's name, having contributed to the building fund. Suffice it to say that having grown up in the Baptist Church, I subsequently went to Church Teachers College after being lured by the late Bishop Benjamin Vaughan, an Anglican bishop, to go to this particular institution which was opening for the first time. And while I was there, I realized that I was being made into an Anglican. And I felt a little bit uncomfortable. So after I was confirmed by the late Anglican Bishop Percival Gibson, I insisted that I wanted to be baptized, because I felt that I had to be baptized, not just confirmed. And so a friend of mine, another college mate, he's now dead, we were baptized in the swimming pool at the college. And I do recall that when the priest dipped me in the water and I came up, a dove flew over. At the time, I was convinced that this was spiritual intervention. Of course, I subsequently realized that birds usually come to the pool to dip and drink water. When I came back to Montego Bay many years after, I rejoined the Calvary Baptist Church. But over the years, because of all the various duties and functions, I have strayed somewhat, Reverend. So, you and I have spoken about it already, so we won't go any further into that. But you know, as I stand here, I am reminded of a certain story of a drunkard who was a Baptist, who used to go to church, but after a while, the liquor took over, and so he stopped going to church for a long time. And one Sunday morning, as he was passing the church, he had an inclination to just take a peek inside to see what's going on. And as he went up the steps, the choir and the congregation began to sing lustily, "Holy, holy, holy, Lord God Almighty." And he rushed in fear because he thought they were singing, "Holy, holy, Lord God Almighty." I hope, Reverend Shimhu, that I will not suffer a similar fate. Many years ago, in fact in 1979, I was the editor of the Beacon newspaper that preceded the Western Mirror. We were in a great deal of struggles. The owner of the Beacon, an Englishman, had left suddenly, in fact abandoned the company and the workers. And I was asked by the workers at the time to lead the process and to continue the newspaper. It was a very challenging task. And on one occasion in 1979, a Friday evening, I was sitting in my little rickety office, and I suddenly realized that after I had paid the staff, I had no money. I couldn't find fare to go home because I wasn't driving any vehicle then, Mr. Minister and Mr. Deputy Mayor. So I sat there bemoaning my wretched state. But I prayed as a good Baptist. And eventually I saw this nice, pristine yellow Mazda drive up. And out came two Rastafarians who I had known for some time, because one of the things I used to do with the Beacon is to promote the entertainers, local entertainers. And they came into the office with a briefcase. Those days was the Samsonite was the popular, Samsonite was the popular. And I said, "Boss, we're going to Kingston tomorrow. We're going to do a recording at Bob Marley's studio. And we want you to come as our manager." And they opened the briefcase and money in there, you see. And they said to me, "You can help yourself, boss, no problem." I was somewhat in trepidation because these are Rastas, and I said, "Wait, already some money could have come from." Anyway, they assured me, "No, boss, it's money that we saved for a long time because we want to cut a tune." So the following day we went off to Kingston, to Bob Marley's studio. First time in my life we're going to Bob Marley's studio. And my friends, it went way up into the evening before we could get into the studio. And having got into the studio, we were told to be very quiet because the gong, as they call him, was going to he's going to lay some tracks on his latest song. And he doesn't want any distraction, any disturbance. So me and the two Rasta guys, we had to lie down on the floor so Bob wouldn't see us. And he lived upstairs the studio, and he came down into the studio with his guitar. And he sat there looking very pensive, and he began. "Old pirates, yes, they rob I. Sold I to the merchant ships, Minutes after, they took I from the bottomless pit. But my head was made strong, my hand rather, was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever have, redemption songs. Redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Ooh, we gave that little ooh sound, you know. Some say it's just a part of it. We have got to fulfill the book. Yes, won't you help me sing these songs of freedom? Because all I ever have, redemption songs, redemption songs. Marley looked very pensive and sad. And I was later to know that even at that point in his life, the cancer was in his system, and he was aware of it. And I suspect that he knew that he didn't have much longer to live. As you know, he would have passed on in the following year. And the question is, what would have gone through his mind at the time for him to have come up with these particular lyrics? Bearing in mind that he would have called a section of a speech, because a lot of persons do not realize that the term emancipate yourself from mental slavery is not a Bob Marley original. It is in fact Marcus Garvey who said it in one of his famous speeches. And what Bob did was to have taken that section of his speech and put it in his song. So the fact is that what could have been going through his mind at the time? And the question we have to ask ourselves is, what is redemption? In Christianity, redemption refers to the deliverance of Christians from sin and its consequences, the saving significance of the death of Christ, freedom from captivity. It also means the action of reclaiming or gaining possession of something in exchange for payment or clearing a debt. I want you to listen very carefully to the last part, because even as we talk about redemption in the context of its Christian aspect, there's another side to redemption, and that is a certain word that has become popular nowadays, reparation. And what reparation speaks to, of course, is the fact that after the many years of slavery, where the British caused our ancestors to labor in the fields, to provide Britain with tremendous wealth through sugar. And after slavery was abolished, what did the slaves get? Nothing, absolutely nothing. They may have got a few, here and there stuff, but in the finances, they were left to go and scrounge on the hillsides of Jamaica. And so today, there's a reparation movement in full force. And I just wondered maybe when Bob Marley sang about redemption song, if he was also in some way referring to that aspect of it. And interestingly, in Montego Bay, in St. James today, one of the major economic activities is scamming. And many of the scammers insist that their scamming is a form of reparation, because that is their way of getting back something from the aristocracy, from the plantation owners. Interesting observation from our young people. I won't go further into that. Suffice it to say that is one aspect of the whole question of reparation. But back to Bob Marley's message. What was the essence of it? What were the things that were going through his mind? Bob Marley had the opportunity with Redemption Song, the last song in his final album with the Wailers, Uprising in 1980. He died on May 11, 1981 at age 36 from complications from cancer. He knew the end was near. Rated among the top 20 political songs, U2's Bono said, I carried Bob Marley's Redemption Song to every meeting I had with a politician, prime minister, or president. It was for me a prophetic utterance, or as Bob would say, the small axe that could fell the big tree. The song reminded me freedom always comes with a cost. And this is very significant because too many Jamaicans today take their freedom for granted, not realizing the struggles, the blood, sweat, and tears that our forefathers had to go through for us to be able to be in this room today as free citizens of a free country. We take that for granted. Huh? But for those who would be prepared to pay for it, maybe emancipation from mental slavery could be the reward. What is emancipation from mental slavery? Marcus Garvey realized that it was not just a matter of getting rid of the shackles of slavery, the physical shackles. He realized, for example, that the blacks needed to have economic power. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on. But the fact of the matter is that Bob Marley sought to bring to the fore the fact that is it that all we have ever had are redemption songs? Is it that we have not been paid for all the sacrifices that our foreparents have gone through slavery? Let us look briefly at Marcus Garvey and what he went through. Because one of the sad facts of our history, nowadays we glorify Bob Marley and we glorify Marcus Garvey. But when Bob Marley was alive in Jamaica for many years, he was not accepted. He was seen as the dirty little Rasta boy. That's a fact. Neither was Marcus Garvey accepted. He was seen as a madman. If you were to listen to some of what unfolded in the life of Marcus Garvey, you will get my point. Marcus Garvey was born in St. Anne's Bay on August 17, 1887. He was the youngest of 7 children, and although he was a country boy, he was afforded the opportunity to read widely because his father had a large library. That is very significant. He was forced to read because his father had a library. One of the tragedies of today's Jamaica is that our young people do not read. Worse now how them have the Android. Anywhere you go now, you see the phone. If an accident happens, 10 people that take picture of the same dead somebody. Anything happening out there is just TikTok, WhatsApp. And so I see recently where the United Nations is insisting that Android phones should be banned from schools. Because reading is no longer an art, it is no longer something that many of us wishes to pursue. But it was by reading that Marcus Garvey was able to become such a great liberationist. And so after elementary school, Garvey's education continued in the way of private tuition. His first job was in his godfather's printery, after which he joined the staff of P.A. Benjamin. Some of you know what P.A. Benjamin, they manufacture all kinds of goodies, including Kananga water and Florida water. You remember those? Mm-hmm. Where his brilliance became evident when he became a foreman at the youthful age of 18. This was no small accomplishment, you know, for a young black man in those colonial times. So he was destined for greatness. Garvey, with his sharp mind and energetic personality, was naturally attracted to those spheres of life which gave the opportunity for intellectual, cultural, and political expression. He therefore became involved in trade unionism, politics, and journalism. Sort of reminds me someone of myself, although unless I'm mortal. Garvey's dedication to the working class, especially those of African descent, was manifested from as early as 1908 when he joined the printers' strike for better wages, although he himself had been offered a salary increase. Mr. Minister, salary increase. He never take the salary increase. I'm not throwing words at you, okay? Mm-hmm. Anyway, he became involved with people like Bustamante and Norman Manley, and was involved in the plight of the masses at that time. He also started a newspaper which was called The Watchman, but that didn't last very long, and I can understand that. Newspapers have a very short life history in Jamaica, which is why the Western Mirror in its 43rd year is the second oldest newspaper in Jamaica, which is almost 200 years old. Think about that. That's the reality. So he went to England, and he got the chance to do some work there for African Times and Orient Review, a newspaper edited by a man by the name of Deuce Muhammad Ali, an Egyptian. And may I just go on, he eventually started the Universal Negro Improvement Association and what was called the African Communities League. One of Garvey's most noted concepts was the belief that blacks should be economically independent. And so he started the Black Star Line. And when it failed, because of mechanisms set in place by evil and jealous white supremacists, the organization found itself in deep financial trouble. And this resulted in Garvey's imprisonment in 1925. He had to serve 2.5 years in prison. And up to this day, his criminal record has not been expunged. There has been a great deal of talk about this and previous governments approaching the United States government to have that record of criminal action expunged. It has not happened. On returning to Jamaica, Garvey became actively involved in politics, forming the People's Progressive Party in 1929. The Jamaican political arena seemed not to have been ready for Garvey's revolutionary manifesto. So you know what happened to him? He was jailed. Despite the fact that the UNIA continued to grow, sinister forces seemed out to get it. Garvey faced charges of libel because his publications were so forthright, and eventually he had to sell his assets and get out of Jamaica because he couldn't pay off all his legal obligations. And so in 1935, Garvey left for England, where he continued to promote the ideas of unity and the progress of the African. He was, however, and notice this, he was, however, plagued by loneliness, poverty, and sadness. And so in 1940, he suffered 2 strokes. He died in June of that year, a broken man. As Bob Marley has sung, how long will they kill our prophets? Even in the case of Bob Marley, you know, there's a conspiracy theory that he was killed by certain forces in the United States who claim that his songs were too revolutionary and would stir up revolutionary discontent, especially among young Americans. I remember once traveling to the United States, and when I went on several campuses, all I could hear being played is Bob Marley songs. Get up, stand up for your right. Rastaman vibrations. He was having tremendous influence, even more so than what he was having in Jamaica. Because as I said, Bob Marley was not that much accepted in Jamaica up to the time of his death. It is only after when it was realized the significance of his tremendous musical artistry and significance in terms of the philosophy and everything that he stood for, that we are now even saying that he should be made a national hero. The fact of the matter is that we need to come to terms with our own identity, which is why Bob Marley went on to sing another song. I won't quote most of it, and Reverend Jim, you might not like a certain part of it. It's called Talking Blues. Some of you may know that one. Cold ground was my bed last night, and rock was my pillow too. Again, Bob Marley used biblical imagery in his songs. Those of you would recall, was it Jacob who slept on there it is. Cold ground was my bed last night, yes, and rock was my pillow too. He was here giving vent to all the frustration that he had. He says, yes, I've been down on the rock for so long. I seem to wear a permanent screw. You realize that even to this day, there are so many young Jamaicans who wear a permanent screw? I've been down on the rock for so long, I seem to wear a permanent screw. But I'm gonna stare in the sun, let the rays shine in my eyes. I'm gonna take just one step more, because I feel like bombing a church. Now that you know that the preacher is lying. I remember Mutty Perkins, one of our famous talk shows, took him to task for that one, to say that he was iconic, Reverend, that he was out of order to be thinking of bombing a church. But if we look beyond just the imagery of what he was saying there, he was really dealing with the establishment of which the church is a part. And so we have to face the reality that our heroes, our Bob Marley, our Garvey, have not in this day and age been given enough adoration and significance. We mouth a lot of things about them. But are our young people sufficiently convinced, for example, of what Marcus Garvey has said repeatedly? Up, you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will. Has that been achieved? Is there any evidence of that anywhere? Yes, there are many achievements. But one of the tragedies of today's Jamaica, my friends, is when when Garvey would have said also that a people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. And many of our young people today are trees without roots. Garvey would have gone on to say, And I would love if this could have been put in every school in Jamaica, every educational institution, put up on the walls, everywhere. Listen to what Garvey said. If you have no confidence in self, you are twice defeated in the race of life. Liberate the minds of men, and ultimately you will liberate the bodies of men. The black skin is not a badge of shame, but rather a glorious symbol of national greatness. With confidence, you have won before you have started. Don't you believe, my friends, that if every young Jamaican boy and girl were to sufficiently embrace what Garvey said there, we would perhaps see less bleaching? You know, it was Garvey, in fact, you know, who coined the phrase, black is beautiful. Yes. It was he. It was not some American singer or anything like that. It was Garvey who first said that. And unfortunately, we are not sufficiently inculcating in the minds of our young Jamaicans that black is beautiful, that black carries no badge of shame. You know, even when we look at the whole business of slavery, there's an aspect to slavery which we have not yet come to terms with. Take, for example, we are all in this room with various names. Smith, I'm not so sure about the Reverend's name, but Vernon, Davis. All of these names came from our slave masters. If you were working for a Mr. Davis, you took on your slave master's name, not your African name. Eh? And I would urge some of you, you know there's a monument behind the Cultural Center in Sam Sharp Square. And if you go there, there are names of many slaves who were killed during the Christmas Rebellion. And you may just see your name there. Could be your great-great-great-great-grandfather or mother. We have not come to terms with that. We are not saying that at this stage of life you should become somebody with an African name. It's too late in the day for that. But young people in this country should be taught to understand their ancestry. When I was growing up as a kid, going to boys' school and infant school, we were taught about Bumbo the elephant. Eh? And pygmies, and Africa, the dark continent. Those things are still instilled in many of us. I have had to struggle with many acts of discrimination, even unto this day. If you're black, stay back. If you're brown, stick around. If you're white, you're right. That is still the philosophy of Western civilization, whether we like it or not. Recently, in America, Governor DeSantis, who is seeking to run for president of the United States, I regard him as an idiot, is suggesting and is seeking to establish in Florida that slaves, in fact, benefited from slavery. You agree with it? In what way could our forefathers have benefited from slavery? Absolute nonsense. And this is what they now want to teach in the schools, because on the other side of the coin, the black educators in America want to let the black students get a greater understanding of their own history. They don't want that, because too many things will be revealed. When Bob Marley talk about old pirates, yet they rob and take her down into the bottomless pit, we sometimes don't remember what slavery was about, you know. Slavery was a very complex thing, you know, and it was not just black and white, you know. Because Africans in Africa also sold slaves. it was an economic activity, and so the chief would gather up some of him enemies them and sell them to the Portuguese and the English, right? So we have to be careful when we dissect the whole business of slavery. And when we look at the whole question of liberation, for example, it was the Quakers, who we hardly ever hear about. It was the Quakers who first began the process of emancipation in the 1700s, before we reached down to the Christmas Rebellion. And even in the time of the Christmas Rebellion, up to that point, there were some white planters, foremen and others, who secretly joined with the slaves. The reality, of course, is we have to ask, in today's Jamaica, are we still a plantocracy? In other words, is there still a great house out there? And are we still field slaves and house slaves? The field slaves would have worked in the cane piece. The house slaves would have worked in the kitchen and in the bedrooms, clean up the place. Are we still in that sort of mood? When you go to the bank to open an account, and the 49 questions that they have to ask you to open the account, is that emancipation? Huh? Have you stopped to think about it? When you want to go and have a nice swim in the beach, and most of the beaches in Jamaica are not accessible to black Jamaicans, and I say this unrepentantly, is that emancipation? We have to wake up and face certain realities. And these were some of the questions that Marcus Garvey asked in his time, why he was pilloried and hated. There's a song that even his own Jamaicans sold him for rice. And a very famous black American man by the name of W.E.B. Du Bois, he said Marcus Garvey is the most dangerous enemy of the Negro race in America and in the world. Can you imagine that? Marcus Garvey. So even though we celebrate Garvey today, even though we celebrate Marley today, we must bear in mind that it was not a smooth road at all. And I want to remind you that it was Marcus Garvey's philosophy. You know, one of the things he said was, we must canonize our own saints, create our own martyrs, and elevate to positions of fame and honor black men and women who have made their distinct contribution to our racial history. I am the equal of any white man. I want you to feel that way too. Amen. Amen. And that is why he said, as I mentioned earlier, that black is beautiful. And we have to expunge that mental slavery out of our minds, where we still say anything that too black no good. And we want we son or we daughter to marry to somebody with a little brown skin, so the baby no come out too black. Not true. We are still in that era, you know. We are still in that era. I know it will make some of you uncomfortable, and I apologize if I do. But these are the realities that we still face. And if we are therefore going to be speaking frankly about all of the contributions of Marley and Marcus Garvey, we must also face these realities. Much has been said about the Baptist War. But before I come back to the Baptist War, I just briefly wanted to touch on the matter of liberation theology, which is part of my lecture today.